Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to the Kult of Mets Personalities podcast. This is not Bob Murphy. On today's episode, we'll discuss the upcoming Game 6 of the National League Championship Series against the Los Angeles Dodgers, as well as deliver a happy recap on the Grimace Mets Game 5 victory. Today's Cult members are your hosts, Matt Basilpour, joined by Nick Kalidas and Dave Batman Singer.
10:53 on a Friday evening here. I'm in New Jersey. Dave, you're in
Virginia.
Nick in New York in his sound booth. And Mets personalities, at least a portion of them, gathered here. Drinking some twisted teas and just celebrating an offensive explosion at Citi Field tonight. 12-6 Mets take Game 5. We're going back to LA for Game 6 on Sunday. Series still alive. And let me just, before we open it up to Nick Kalidas, Dave Singer, my esteemed colleagues and fellow compadres of the Kult of Mets Personalities, I mean, I can speak for myself. All the angst, all the Metsy, angsty worries were there all afternoon. I was actually happy to have the game early today, just to after the last 2 days, complete bloodbath at Citi Field. Dodgers, they're obviously uber talented. No doubt about that. Like a $10 billion payroll, over the last bunch of years. But no, they're like uber talented team, Ohtani, the whole deal. They're also the team, like when they get a little flow going, they pile it on. So the last 2 games were just, once it dipped, like for the Mets, that was it. And they were piling on. So it was nice to see the Mets absorb that early first scare and then come right back. Pete Alonso with just a missile on a terrible pitch. I don't even just cranked it. And here we go. 12-6. I mean, we still had to sweat a little bit. It wasn't going to be an easy road. We all knew that, right? It was not going to be just not have to use all our top arms in the bullpen. It was going to be a sweat job, but still 12-6 win. We advance. And here we are tonight. We are because this was in flux, right? I mean, if it was another bloodbath, I don't think this podcast would have been happening. If it was, if it went the other way. So I'm honored to be joined by you guys. Nick, you we've been texting back and forth this week. What are your feelings tonight as we do this on the heels of that victory?
Well, we've been back and forth through the same thing over and over, haven't we? The team has been dead. And, there's a certain point where you kind of don't really fully expect it. And I think at this point, I mean, I don't think I'm breaking any new ground to think that it seemed like we were going to lose. It felt like it. It felt like we'd reached the end. And there's just something about this team. And now coming up on the next, on LA with Game 6, when they're going to run a bullpen game out there, most likely, it's getting you dreaming again. It really has, and it's just, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling
it. You're back alive. I can see it.
A little bit. Feeling it. The blood's back in my brain, which is good.
And Dave, you got your twisted tea going, like myself here in New Jersey, your native state. So, greetings from the great Garden State. What are your thoughts on how that turned out tonight?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, you kind of go from this super high, this split in LA. We're going to come home. You expect to win the first one at home. All right, we didn't win the first one. Of course, we're going to win the second one. We didn't win the second one. You're like, holy shit. We went from being so high 4 days ago, to being in an elimination game at home. Yeah. And I was down in the dumps. I was kind of like, shit, the Dodgers are just better. There's something they're doing. Our players are great. I thought the manager made a couple of questionable decisions yesterday, but they just felt like the Dodgers had all the momentum. And then, like you said, thank God for Pete Alonso. I mean, just to launch that bomb early in the game.
Get the weight off everybody.
Absolutely.
It took the weight off the whole team. It took the weight off all the fans, took the weight off everybody, and it put the pressure on the Dodgers. You could just kind of see them clench. And then, it was just an unbelievable start to the game. So great game today. Loved it.
Well, and Dave, you golf, right? So I view a lot of these things like match play, like Ryder Cup kind of stuff, right? Where it's constantly about, like you just said, like putting the pressure on, right? Like you got to constantly, you can go from having the pressure on you, and then it could flip in an instant. So then, like you have the Dodgers coming in riding high again. They've literally bloodbath two games in a row in Citi Field took the crowd out of it. Now you flip that instantly, and it's amazing. Like the crowd was instantly alive.
And what a crowd tonight! I'll tell you, hat tip. I think all of us had a bunch of friends over at the game tonight. It was great just seeing, Ed and Taryn and Danielle and the whole crew and everybody that was out there. And I think, kind of thinking back to the game, had that been the opposite, had like the Dodgers gone up 3-0 on a Betts or an Ohtani home run, I think it's Katie barred the door. I don't know that we're going to come back, although I've said that a lot about this team this year. But what a great start. And yeah, it was just a great game, although they kind of gave it to us in the end. They put the pressure back on.
Yeah. Well, and Nick, this is something historically from the advent of us doing these podcasts, right? And again, we were just literally, the throes of the franchise, like in the darkest Wilpon days, like no reason to be discussing this team in January and, like a miserable day off season. And we did, right? And here, but the one thing that's always just the hallmark, and I always say this about being a Met fan, it battle tests you for life because it's never easy, right? It is always that's why. So it's almost like, as Dave mentioned, right? You come back you get the split in LA, right? Exactly what you needed to do. The pitching is set up. Coming back home 3 straight, right? Like you take, you either try to finish it. Does that kind of track with how you view this franchise and this team?
Well, it's weird. This franchise, like everybody really focuses on these terrible things that always happen to us. And it's usually comically bad, right? But we're really a franchise of extremes, if you really think of it. This is a team that when it does go good, it goes iconically good. I feel like we beat ourselves the last couple of games. I don't feel like the Dodgers did. And the reason being, we left, what did we leave? I think, if I'm not mistaken, 19 guys on base over 2 games. And we walked 20 batters.
The ballpark. So
it's like 20 hits.
It's like in football,
20 hits.
If you turn the ball over 5 times in the game, you're not in the game. So in baseball, if you leave that many guys on and also walk that many guys, forget about anything else, right? Like,
right, exactly.
Take all the other elements out of it. Like, you're probably not going to fare well when you do that.
Yeah, right. It's almost walks in Game 4. I'm like, what the F? It's like, stop walking, guys. I'd rather they challenge them with a cookie down the middle and walk everybody. I mean, that was ridiculous. That took the life out of everybody. But today it was different. You're right, Nick. I mean, they kept fighting. Dodgers, to their credit, they kept coming back. But, Daggers, Marte, and Nimmo, and Alvarez.
How about Marte? Marte is just right now. I mean, he looks the lineup is different with him in it in general, but he has come back from his injury. He looks fantastic, just locked in, hitting everything on the screws.
Yeah, 100%. And Nimmo, Nimmo is really banged up. That foot, that plantar fasciitis is no joke.
Oh, it's a tough injury.
He's hanging in there, and man, what a great guy. I don't know if
and Lindor's still hurt
in the game, but he's just unbelievable.
And Lindor's back is still hurt too.
Yeah,
people aren't talking about that because it's not a narrative, but it can't be healed by now, and he's playing
back injuries,
at this incredible level.
Plantar fasciitis, awful injury that doesn't heal quickly.
Sure.
Injuries also, and I was thinking about that too with Lindor. You don't. That narrative has kind of gone to the backdrop because he's had so many big moments. But I mean, he's not 100%. I mean, nobody is, but I don't think it's even close to it. Now it's interesting. I was thinking about Nimmo. I don't know if you remember this. What year this would have been at this point. When Nimmo first got drafted, we had the beat writer from his high school on our podcast.
Right. Okay. I remember that.
And I remember him describing, again, this is we're going back a bit. And it's amazing to think from that moment, and he was just like this aw shucks kid from Wyoming. Total gamer now, center of the franchise. He's had a remarkable journey to this point, Nimmo.
Yeah, he had a great interview with Steve Gelbs after they beat the Phillies in the locker room. Did you guys see that interview?
Yes.
I mean, that was exceptional. I mean, hat tip to Gelbs, great guy, and he was kind of talking about interviewing Nimmo back, and I think it was 2011.
Yes.
And kind of Alpha Omega from where he was there as a teenager now to, I guess, a grizzled old veteran, the longest tenured Met, and they shared a moment there. I just thought that was pretty special.
Mark Vientos. I mean, my God. I mean,
superstar.
Right? I mean, forget it, even beyond the skill. Like I view it like I'm all about. I'm a Kobe Bryant guy. Like I'm all about the mental side. He doesn't. Not only does he not look shook, he looks like he wants to be the guy up in the big moment.
Oh, yeah.
He's. I didn't know he had this in him. Like I thought he could be a good player, and I never saw this coming in a million years. I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on just Vientos and just the growth throughout this year.
Great hitters have come from nowhere before, and it's amazing how no matter how long you watch baseball and no matter how many times you see something like this happen, you're always shocked that it happens. And I don't think anybody really saw something like this coming. And also some players, I think all players play a little differently with the lights on, with the spotlight on them. And some guys raise their game. And, and this is connected to Vientos, but this is on a greater point. One thing I'm sort of seeing, and I want to see if you guys actually see the same parallel, right? Because, people were disrespecting us as we got into the playoffs, and we've seen this team play consistently for the majority of the season, except for the very beginning. And yet we don't have those, maybe outside of Lindor, those quintessential superstars. We don't have an Ohtani or somebody like that. And I remembered a team, I hate to say this too, I remember a team that's exactly like this. Doesn't this remind you of the mid-90s Yankees?
A little bit less steroids now, but yeah.
Well, think of it like Posada, Jeter, Bernie Williams. They didn't have these stars with these massive numbers.
So like the mentally tough guys, like the mentally
tough.
Paul O'Neill was
right. There's almost a parallel to everybody on this team.
Guys, like those guys.
Yeah, one good closer, and they filled in the pitching staff with these number 2, number 3 starters from free agency. They didn't, except for Pettit, David Peterson. They don't have anybody. They didn't have anybody really major. They bring in Jimmy Key. They bring in an aging David Cohn.
Jimmy Key was a good pitcher. He was good.
Yeah, but at best, it's like a number 2, like Senga. They didn't have like the guy. Roy Halladay.
Like a lot of tough-minded players, like a lot of tough-minded guys.
Right, and then they couldn't be beaten when it got to the postseason because they had this cohesiveness as a team, and they were all similar kind of players. And it just started to occur to me, Lindor is very Jeter-esque. And I hate that aspect of it, but it explains why this team is playing so well and has this sort of grit, So I don't know. It's just an interesting parallel. And Vientos is one of these, kind of like one of those guys the Yankees would bring up back in the 90s, and we'd go, oh, God, where do they find these people? And he has a little bit of that to him.
Yeah,
I like it. I remember kind of Vientos, and I think a lot of these guys that are kind of his ilk, of his age group, they were like the COVID babies, right? Those formative years, there were some challenges, during the last, 3 to 4 years ago, really, when COVID kind of sapped a lot of these guys of developmental time. And I remember hearing about Vientos, and the knock on him was he was just a power hitter, right? He had a couple of holes in his swing, big strike zone, free swinging guy. And he, I think, either had some really good coaching, or he just developed the right way. He seems like a very smart guy. Number one, and I agree that he does like the moment, like he thrives in it, which is the mark of a superstar. And I was watching Gary Cohn. You guys probably saw it too. He's like, we are watching, the coming out party of a superstar. And I do think the next, 8 to 10 years, he's going to be an all-star and, 100 RBI guy and do all those kind of things that we think. Well, what a story.
Yes.
It's been unreal.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And again, like the reluctant, he doesn't shrink from the moment and kind of thrives in it. In the off season, he went and worked with Lindor, like just to try to learn, okay, this guy, he said it, like this guy got a $340 million contract. What is he doing that I'm not? So for a young player to kind of take that mentality, that to me is, and it wasn't and actually went and did the work. That to me stands out. Like when you have somebody of that age already thinking in those terms before he had an established spot, right? Like he was in a battle with Beatty, and he still had that mindset of I'm going to go he's got the whole deal and the mental side. So watching him this postseason has been amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Beatty because, you think about where this team was back in April, right? May. We're all so excited. We've got this great team, and then it's a disaster. I mean, it seems like May was like 19 years ago. It was like
right.
The before
it was
game.
apathy. We had
different
apathy.
season.
Every Met fan had apathy, and you had like
sure.
There was apathy.
I couldn't watch. I mean, literally, I remember I watched like 10 games in a row, and I was just so angry at the world. I told my wife, I'm like, I'm not going to watch baseball for like 30 days. Of course, I lasted like 3 days, but it was unwatchable. And then to see where they've come now, and the player changes, and Mendoza, and the moves that he made, and of course, hat tip to Steve Cohen and the leadership group of this team, because they kept the faith when I didn't. Like and Cohen and everybody else, of course, they have to say that it's their ball club, but they're like, no, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, and they made the right moves. And even when McNeil gets hurt, other guys get hurt, they just had built up enough momentum to carry him to here. And holy shit, we were on the brink again, and here we are, going to LA for Game 6. This has just been one of the best Mets years of my life, like the worst to the best, all in one season.
Yeah, and let me throw that again. That's a great point. Like, just let me throw that at you guys. Like, you're longtime Met fans. I mean, just and obviously '86 is the gold standard of just the tough ass, just badass Mets team that got it done, of course. But there's been fun teams in the mix. There's been tough teams, talented teams. Like how, and Nick, I'll go to you first. Like how do you this team, like just in terms of the grit, the kind of just living on the edge a bit, but kind of rising up. Like how do you kind of rate this team in terms of like fondness and personality and grit and toughness?
Well, so to me, it's the I would say like the tie for the fourth best Mets team in as far as toughness goes at this point, because we have to see how the story plays out. Because I saw a lot of toughness in '99. Yeah. Right. I saw a lot of toughness in 2006. I mean, 2015, I thought we were going to win. Right. And even 1986, we were one strike away from being chokers. And if not for Mookie Wilson's ballet dance, right, it doesn't happen. And so that team was really tough. That team almost choked to a team that I don't even think the Red Sox won 90 games that year. I could be wrong, but either it was barely 90 or not even 90. Yeah. And they won 108. And then 2 years later, there was another issue with the Kevin McReynolds bunch. So, but 99, I really thought we were going to win. And we had the Robin Ventura game. Everything was wonderful. And then people forget about the walking in. That was the year Kenny Rogers walked in the last run. That's been erased from Met history. No one ever talks about that. We don't speak of it. People talk about Beltran all the time. Nobody talks about Kenny Rogers. Great chicken.
Gutting loss.
Oh my God, it killed me, but we forgot about it like completely. So honestly, I see the same grit. I think this team can win the World Series, and I think it could also lose in 2 days. So, but it's going to be a great story, and it's got that quality to it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like it's like different. Like I remember '86 so clearly. It was like a very seminal year in my life. It was the year I joined the Air Force. I was trying to figure stuff out. I was 19 years old, so super focused on sports and baseball the way you can't when you're a working adult, right? Where you're just kind of living every single second. I mean, that team was a juggernaut. I mean, it was incredible. I remember walking down, Canal Street, listening on my radio of Dwight Gooden hitting a home run. It was just all kinds of crazy shit. And, and then again, though, you're right, Nick, they almost shit the bed, in the World Series, which would have been criminal for a 108-win team. This team, like they built up from a really, really bad place. So it's been kind of a trajectory, which is very, whereas that team was like, they were super high all year, and then they went down, and then, of course, the amazing comeback. But I love this team now. I hated this team for the first couple months of the season, and now it's like I want to buy all these guys dinner and beers for the rest of their life. I love them all. It's unbelievable. But we got to close the deal. We got to go to LA, get into this bullpen game. We've got our starters lined up. Our guys are hitting. I'm hoping they're confident. They go in there and they put a hurt in Game 6, and then it's a 1-game deal, right?
Yeah.
And we got
now
our guy on the mound.
Yeah, and now on that game, right? So the big difference today's game, obviously, in addition to the outcome, was some of the lineup changes, right? You get Winker in there, McNeil in there, and then of course Alvarez. I mean, hopefully this is a precursor of things to come because he was in a major drought. Looks like he may be knock on
down.
Okay. What do you think about the lineup? Mendoza obviously known to go kind of with his gut. Any thoughts? Do you keep the lineup as it was tonight, or JD? Like, how do you kind of navigate this next game?
Dave, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll start. I mean, I like JD Martinez in the lineup just because he takes a lot of pitches and he can work a walk. I think he's back in the dugout. You've heard him. He's like one of these kind of wizard batters where he goes back and he's like, hey, he's tipping his pitch, like Rusty Staub, kind of guy. I like him in the lineup in that regard. McNeil, I was questioning the decision to put McNeil in. Of course, hindsight being 2020. Now I love it. I thought McNeil looked great. I mean, his fielding's, is always was.
Yeah,
McNeil's fielding, right? But he's going to put the bat on the ball. When he has 2 strikes on him, I'm not like, oh my God, he's going to strike out. I'm like, no, he's going to put it in play or do something. So I really think Mendoza would probably stick with this lineup, but it's all hands on deck, right? He's going to do some situational stuff. I think, again, the key for the Mets is to get some kind of early advantage, where the strategy then would be a little more easy to kind of play out as opposed to getting behind. Then you start making some desperate moves. Everybody starts questioning them. You know what it's like. But yeah, I thought tonight the lineup was right, and we didn't talk about it, but holy shit, how about Peterson? Oh my God! I mean, that guy, he's been great this playoffs. I thought he was great today. What do you think, Nick? What about the lineup? What would you do?
I mean, to me, I also agree with McNeil. I mean, I love what Iglesias has done, but it seemed like he was running out of gas, right?
Yeah.
And the way the season kind of went, remember McNeil was doing incredible when he got hurt. He had finally turned that corner, and this is Jeff McNeil. You know what I mean? Like, we have Jeff McNeil and if he looks like he can play, he should start, even though I understand the story and the song and all of that. I mean, Iglesias should be part of it. But I think if you're going to die with your best. If you're going to win, I felt the same way about Senga. If you building him up to potentially do something, if you want to get a championship, he is more talented than anybody else on the pitching staff. So if you can do something with that, I just think the more innings that get taken up, the more bats that get taken up by quality people, it's just going to increase your chances of winning. And not for nothing, Jesse Winker. Okay.
Great.
He's like,
He's making this like a WWE character.
Oh my God.
Yes.
He reminds me a little bit of Tanner Boyle from Bad News Bears. Like the kid that would insult everybody, and also a little bit like Lenny Dykstra. And I think that's the kind of guy that's been missing all through the Wilpon years. All those years where we couldn't get over the top, we didn't have that guy because they just didn't like that kind of character. They didn't. If you notice it, once they traded Dykstra, there was nobody else like that came here. We got assholes. Pardon my French. Plenty of bad guys, but not that kind of guy.
On the right way, not channeled the right way. Not channeled the right way.
Right, exactly.
Like
exactly.
Clubhouse guys, but not like the badass field guys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think you talked about the Yankees before. I think Jesse would have fit right in on that team. You had guys like the pitcher David Wells. You had guys like Paul O'Neill. I mean, these were gritty, kind of in your face.
Right, exactly.
Like, they weren't like the well manicured, kind of calm guys. No, they want to fucking win some baseball games, man.
They're baseball players.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, that's the thing. And Winker's the guy. Like, if you're in a tough environment and you're not hitting, right? He has that like irrational confidence, right? He just even if it's not justified. He thinks he's going to get up, and you need that sometimes. Like, you need those guys, right? Like,
sure.
Think about like a hockey team, right? You need the cruiser. You need certain elements to a team that you might make some people uncomfortable, but like it's a certain, like, it adds a certain element that like you can have the grimace and the oh my God stuff, but you also kind of need that too.
Well, it's funny, we're talking about this because I think part of the criticism before, and of course going back to earlier in the year and even last year, was that there is this, and I hate to criticize the guy after such a big win, but part of the thing with Alonso was always he's like, oh, everything's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. That's how kind of he gets by. So when you have a lot of guys like that in your clubhouse, that might work for some people, but it doesn't work. It would work for me. Like I like to get out there and kind of get in your face too and find the mellow guys, whatever. But yeah, let's go. Let's take the hill, man. Let's freaking win the game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Winker is. I love having him on the team personally. Like I just think he just adds a certain thing, and especially like the whole story too, like where he was kind of the villain and the heel for the Mets fans, and now like it's just. I think all of it's fantastic, and I think he added something to the lineup tonight for sure. So now on the other side, I think on the bullpen side, right? So you jump out to this monstrous lead. The Dodgers come inching back and get enough of a scare into the Mets where they have to use Stanek and Diaz. Feelings on bullpen now, and are you kind of in the camp of the Stanek Diaz in the high leverage situations? I'll say Maton makes me a nervous wreck every time I sit there with like a rosary beads when he comes in. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on the bullpen and how it's played out and now looking forward to hopefully a 6 and get game 6 and 7.
It's a crapshoot, isn't it? I mean, it's funny, but the Dodgers were known for having this wonderful bullpen, and I realized that they got away the last couple of games with shutting us down. We had runners on base every single inning. I think what was it, like 5 times with the bases loaded? It was a lot. Yep. And so they just escaped with their lives. So I really, from the way I see it, I have the same heart palpitations when really any of these guys come in. And then when Diaz comes in, within the first 2 batters whether you're going to have a heart attack or not. He either looks unhittable or he's not hitting the strike zone. So nobody's bringing me confidence, but I could say that easily from both sides. I just think in general, MLB is too reliant on bullpens, and you can see like we hit the Brewers' best guys, and regardless if they were tipping pitchers or not, that's still part of the game. And so, it's going to happen with a closer, but just these middle inning guys are not supposed to be great. They're just
it's true.
There's a reason why they have that job, right?
Yeah, good Diaz is arguably the best reliever left in the the 4 teams. But you're right. Like sometimes he comes in and he'll even do it like in the middle of an inning. Like he'll come in, he's just like he's gonna walk guys. You
see him nibbling around. That's when you know it's not good Diaz. Like
stop nibbling. Like the slider's breaking like 3 feet. You're like, dude, just get that tight little slider.
Throw it in the strike zone. No, they can't touch it. Nobody's touching your stuff if it's in the strike zone. Like he starts nibbling around.
That's when he gets in trouble. You're throwing. 98, 99, 100 with a little wrinkle, they're not hitting that, and if they do, you give them the hat tip. But I hate bullpens in general. Like, so I have no confidence. Stanek, he's gotten some big outs, that guy. So got to give him.
And he has the pedigree from Houston. Like I have some faith in him in big spots.
Yeah, he's a gamer. I mean, and then even when he doesn't necessarily have his great stuff, like he bears down. That guy pitches hard. Yes. I mean, he's in there. You can just see him like grinding. The guy that drives me nuts actually is Alvarez. Like I tweeted this at Blevins. He didn't respond back. I was hoping. Like Alvarez is like he's like putting his glove up. He's moving around. He's doing. I'm like, dude, get back there. Set your fucking target and let them try to hit it. Stop moving all around and jumping around like crazy. I couldn't pitch to that guy.
Gets jumpy.
It drives me nuts. I could not pitch to that guy in a million years. So I'm wondering sometimes, like, when the guys don't necessarily have their stuff. Like, I remember, Kid Carter, Jerry, I go back to Jerry Grody, like, come on, like out there. And Alvarez is just jumping around like a monkey, no matter what the situation is. And I don't understand it. I just wonder if that throws the pitches off. I haven't heard other people mention it, so maybe they like it. I don't know.
It's possibly valid. I mean, he's been, when you watch him hit the last couple of days too, today excluding, because I feel like he's been a bit different today, but for the most part, he's been crazy at the plate last couple of games.
Just jumpy in general, like just very jumpy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, maybe you have something. It's possible.
I got to get Blevins. Now, Danielle, she knows Blevins really well. They're buddies. So I'm going to try to get that question to Jerry, get him to answer it.
Okay.
I'm checking the Yankees score. Let's see.
I think they just feedback, right? I think they 7-6 now.
Oh God!
Oh, it's
really?
8-6.
Oh, 8-6. Okay,
middle of the night. Going to the bottom of the ninth. 8-6.
Yeah, Cleveland. Well, at least that game's gone. That series was like that is a doornail too. The action there, the last two games in that series. Well, and now again, I haven't talked to you guys in a bit, and I just think. And the last time I did it was probably again just like the worst of Mets fandom. The last time in one of these, I imagine. Just the Lindors. I mean, did you sign that contract? I mean, you come in with those kind of expectations. It usually doesn't end great in New York, right? Like you more than likely, especially if you're not a homegrown guy like Cheater or Dave. Like it's probably not gonna work out if you're traded here. You give up some guy, and also pay the big money. It took him a minute to get adjusted here, but I mean, this is like the signature, like last few months and last few games. Dave, your thoughts on just the evolution of Lindor, as the face of the Mets.
Yeah, incredibly special. I got a dear friend of mine who's a huge Cleveland fan. I want to say Indians, but so he told me when we got Lindor, and I like Lindor, but he's over in the American League. I don't see him that often. You just kind of see him, a couple times a year. I didn't study the guy. He called me to tell me how much I'm going to love this guy. Had a tiny bit of a rocky start, but if we get a World Series this year or next year, even, he's Mets Mount Rushmore for me. Just the leadership qualities, how he is as a person, what he's done in the dugout, the OMG. He's not like a cocky dude.
No.
He's just a great human being that also happens to be one of the best baseball players on the planet. So I cannot say enough good things about his defense, his base running, his hitting, his clutch hitting, his power. I mean, he's 5-tool, but he's actually a 6-tool because I'll put the leadership in the clubhouse as a 6-tool. Could not like him anymore. Just amazing. I hope that wasn't too gushy, but I think.
No. It's warranted, Nick. Your thoughts?
Oh, I mean, I believed in this guy from the beginning, so I'm one of those people that don't have to apologize for him. Okay, but this is better than I ever expected. But the field general concept, I've seen that since the beginning, and I mean, I think he's got people around him now that can elevate the rest of the team and kind of capitalize on the center that he brings, and that he's almost like an assassin. That kind of quiet,
confident,
calm energy. The fact that he didn't react after those home runs, I feel like he was sending a message. I feel like he was sending a message to the team, like, we're not done yet. Where this is great, we're not done yet. And it's almost, what it reminds me of a little bit? Gary Carter. After he gets his hit and he runs around the bases and he's coming up and he sees Mookie Wilson as he's crossing the plate, he's relatively calm. He just points at him like that, like, your turn. As opposed to celebrating, we're this much closer. The job wasn't done yet. And that confidence, you can see him in the dugout and he's just standing right there. Meanwhile, I love Keith, but he's in the locker room drinking beer, hanging out in Davy Johnson's office
and smoking.
Right, he's ready to go home. And Carter is standing there, like almost preventing the team from losing in this sort of energy way. And I see that with Lindor, like same kind of quality of like, I'll celebrate when we're done. And I love it.
Well, and I think both of you got spot on there, and I'll kind of echo and the signature home runs he hit. Just again, that reminded me of kind of Kobe. Just we're not celebrating yet, not finished. every time you see him, even when he makes an out to start the game, always right to Vientos and Nimmo and Alonso, telling them what the pitcher's throwing, just always worried about kind of what's happening after him. That stands out to me. And then even when Diaz was struggling in the last series, he gave him the look like, all right, we're no more bullshit. Like, it's time now. Like, and you saw the respect, like, okay, like he's not like there's some guys like, Verdugo, even Bader acts like it, right? A lot of performative kind of stuff. There's
right.
Lindor is not. He has the quiet side, but viewed as a leader because the respect that like you earn it. Like he has that. Like, and that's the thing that stands out to me about him. Like you see the way his teammates look at him, and that's I haven't seen anything like that in a while for the Mets.
It reminded me. You just reminded me of one thing that I also noticed in the same vein when Senga was walking the ballpark a couple of days ago and he needed to get out of that inning. They had a meeting at the mound, and I noticed this. They all kind of congregate, and Lindor goes up behind him and he starts massaging his back, and sort of like he wasn't just standing there talking to him. He, just like you're going to settle somebody down when they're in a panic attack, he knew to make physical contact. And he's like this on his back. And he got out of the inning. I mean, then they took him out of the game, obviously, but he was able to settle down. Those little minor adjustments, I think, for him to be able to see it and just by instinct know what to do, that's, invaluable.
He's such a leader.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the thing, right? I mean, think about it, right? I mean, most of his life, right? He's been the most talented or the top 2 or 3 most talented guys on the diamond, right? Like everywhere he's ever played. That can go either way, right? Like you can be a prick about it and act like like you're above everybody, or you can channel it and use like he's not like that, like over the top, like chirpy leader, but just quiet confidence. And that's it took a minute, I think, for him to really, really settle into it with the Mets. I think he was always there. I think he was trying to find himself in this kind of market and this kind of fandom. But man, like it is all kind of hit. I didn't know if he had this level to his game though. Like I thought he was very talented, no doubt. This is a whole other deal. And again, just some of these home runs. I mean, again, like they remind me of like the Ortiz home runs, like, or Pujols home runs in the big spots where it's like he's not only hitting them, he's expecting to hit them and like calm about it. That's a different year.
He turned on 100-mile-an-hour fastball to hit a grand slam in the biggest moment of the season. I mean, it doesn't get any more clutch than that. And he was dead on that ball. It was just something to behold. As a seminal moment, I'll never forget that at bat.
What's interesting is as impressive as the home runs were, what I notice about him is he always seems to be able to do what you actually need. So whenever anyone else is having these 3-run homers, he's always on base. So if it's late innings and we're down by a couple of runs, he's going to get on base. He's not going to homer. He just changes his mindset. To me, I love that part about his game, where it's whatever you need. He's leading off the game, boom, home run to lead it off. If we need to generate multiple runs, base hit, walk.
You need a massage. He's there to massage.
Back massage. The whole hot stones, Ricky.
Right. He's making salads and dugout between innings for the
exactly.
I love it. I'll start to round it out here. Again, somebody else we haven't gotten to talk to since we haven't done this, and I don't even know how long. Since apparently Brandon Nimmo was drafted, but Mendoza, right? So I mean, again, people didn't know much about it, right? Yankees bench coach, kind of like the consigliere over there, quiet. I admittedly I knew real bits and pieces. So, and then the season starts off as horrifically as possible. We talked about May, mid-May. Everybody thinks we're cooked, right? We all do. He keeps this thing together. They make some move. They patch it all up. And look, he some fans get annoyed about his handling of the bullpen and sometimes going by too much feel. But look, the dude managed the depths of it and has gotten us here. I would just be curious to hear your thoughts. Just year one of Mendoza. Obviously, again, getting to the NLCS, it's going to be considered an amazingly successful year. But just curious, like how you guys view, some of the moves. Even within this series, he's taken some arrows on talk radio about the Sanga move and others. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about how Mendoza's first year has gone.
Well, we're in Game 6 of the NLCS, so that is how he's done, right? I don't have as much of an issue with his bullpen movements because the bullpen sucks. I mean, you can rearrange I don't want to call them crap.
You can't make chicken soup out of chicken shit.
Right, exactly. They're not crap. Okay, they're not crap. No human being is crap. Okay, but they are in the right place at the right time, and they're probably in a situation that some other teams and maybe us down the road will have one or two other guys with a little more natural ability in those positions. But that being said, he's doing mystical things with this group, this whole pitching staff that surprised me. Okay. He taught me one thing though. I know nothing about good managers. Nothing. There's nothing about him that screams, wow, brilliant. Because he's not, you're getting a Bobby V that can really talk you silly and just like spin your head with baseball knowledge. And you're not getting, the Davy Johnson sort of like, the guy that comes in with the biggest dick flying, it's Mendy. He's likable.
But it's like repeatable day after day after day.
Right. But I don't know what I'm talking. I didn't want them to get rid of Buck. I thought it was a huge mistake. Yeah. I don't know anything at this point. I'm going to trust anything David Stearns does. Anything he's doing. Yeah. I don't understand it. If it doesn't make sense to me, it's because I don't have enough information. Because that guy bet right on every single damn person at the trading deadline and before this season. How? I can't say enough about him. I cannot say enough about him and Mendoza.
A lot of times when you get these managers, you have you can kind of sense that there's a couple guys in the team that aren't happy with their role. Maybe they blame the manager for their own past performance or whatever. But even this year, even during the struggles, I never got the sense from any player on the team, except for the one pitcher who shall not be named, who's a dickhead, he's gone, that people were unhappy with Mendoza or the way things were being handled. I think people were confused as a team about what was going on, but he seemed like he had the entire clubhouse. Like he didn't lose the clubhouse. And now, of course, success, breeds all kind of good feelings and emotions, but they're being pretty effusive about the guy, about how he talks to them. Alvarez, you talk about him. He loves Mendoza, Lindor, Nimmo, even Alonso, who's, not necessarily he's a little bit of a me guy sometimes. And I love Pete, and I'm not bashing him. But I think everybody has really kind of gone out of their way to say really positive things about Mendoza for the bulk of the season, if not all the season. Look, is he some kind of managerial master? I don't know, but these baseball lifers, who maybe kind of fought and clawed their way quietly into a leadership role. There's not that many big league managerial jobs. There's a lot of retreads out there. I think there's a little bit of a clique involved. So when you get a guy that gets pulled up, from a bench role that's never really managed before, and you see this kind of success, again, to your point, Nick, was it Stearns or was it somebody kind of whispering in the ear of the Mets brass when they were inquiring about potential managerial candidates that, hey, this guy's been overlooked for a while. You might want to give him a shot, and I'm sure as hell glad they did.
Yeah, and there was, believe that there was some fear that the way the managerial hirings were going, that he might get snatched, and right. they made the plunge. So at 44, again, to your point, 44 years old, not a lot of profile. There's a reason why, all right? There's a why of you get hired by not only a team, but one of the biggest market teams, right? I mean, clearly within the game, some reputation, something to warrant that kind of hiring.
Yeah, and he'll be a manager now for as long as he wants to be. Obviously everybody's tenure runs out after a while. I'm hoping he's here a long time, wins a couple of World Series and stays forever, but he'll never want for another managerial job after the performance this year.
Even despite all of my, built-in Met trauma anxieties that we all have, seeing Cespedes on social media before the game looking like he was just right. He looked like he was in game shape. I'm like, if Nimmo, if his foot doesn't hold up, Cespedes might be ready to go. I had good vibes coming into the game. I don't know. Cespedes kind of settled me down a little bit, as odd as that may sound, given how things kind of ended with him. But, some interesting kind of combinations with some of these, first pitch and catching kind of things at Citi Field. But no, obviously a great outcome. And now I'll kind of round it out with this. The thoughts right now, again, coming in today, like really not good vibes. Again, Cespedes notwithstanding, about this getting back to LA, right? I mean, those were two really, really ugly games. Mets punched back today, thankfully. Hopes now, Nick, I'll start with you on this. Optimism, hopes, fears, and loathing in LA. What are your thoughts on how this plays out?
Okay, there's really no fear. They've been in control the last few games. Even when, 20 walks and 19 left on base is being in control of the game. It's just the opposite way. Right, in the bad way, right? So we've been in control of these games, either one way or the other. So it's about which version of the Mets come out. Yeah. And if it's the good version, then I think they'll still continue to be in control.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Look, it's all about the pitching. I think we have, a slight advantage going into Game 6 that might neutralize the home field advantage. The Dodgers are going to come out firing on offense. They're going to be super aggressive. But, Game 6 is a Game 7 in this situation. For the Mets, it's do or die. So I think you're going to see the best of the Mets. I would expect somebody to step up and have a seminal moment, a la Daniel Murphy, a la Lindor. You can go down.
A la peanut butter sandwiches.
Yeah. So maybe it'll be Nimmo's turn in the barrel, to really do something special. I think the Mets are going to win Game 6. I think we're going to see a Game 7.
I do too.
I'm feeling pretty good. So you think so too, Matty, huh?
I do. I don't know. Again, the combination bullpen game, I think Minaya is going to – I just feel like this team the whole year has been playing out to be on the brink until like the very – and again, Game 7 would be a toss-up, of course, but I feel like this team is just – it's been always kind of playing having to play a Game 7 on the road to get to the World Series to potentially face the Yankees. Like, this season's been kind of the most epic year in a lot of, in a number of ways. That just seems where it's tracking. We'll see, but that's kind of after the performance today. I think they got one more in them, to get it to a 7.
A Subway Series this year, like the Mets winning a Subway Series in 7, I think I would lose my shit. I might have to take like 6 months off and just go somewhere.
And think about it, right? Like New York, this has been in my lifetime, one of the roughest stretches of New York sports fandom on all sides. Everybody, right? Where everybody's
brutal. Brutal.
It's and also, we've had to watch Philly, get their moments in here last year. Then you add in the pandemic that's kind of, really battered New York. That you have a mayor who's under indictment. Like New York, again, like this is one of those moments where I feel like even Mets and Yankee fans kind of almost mutually want the Subway Series in a way they might not normally.
It could be a great year though. You got Mets Yankees playing. Well, you got the Liberty, right? Incredible.
Liberty are playing great.
You're a WNBA fan, which I am. Hockey's back. I mean, Isles, Devils, Rangers, all three, kind of could be playoff bound this year. The football teams are in the shitter. Basketball, NBA, who the hell knows? But we're back, baby. It feels like this could be, one of those kind of runs like Boston had, where you just every year you're some championship in your sport, and we deserve it.
Absolutely. And Dave, I know you're a big Giant fan like I am, right? So I'm actually going Sunday, Giants, Eagles, then going to be back for the Mets game at night. So quite a sports Sunday that I didn't expect to have baseball this late in the year. So
that Giants game could be ugly, buddy. With
I know. It's not the Giants not pretty at the moment, but
fun. I tell you, before we go, I just want to tell you both you guys, I love you guys. I've missed you. This is
love you too.
Catching up, and I hope we do this again. I know we kind of peripherally still stay in touch, but back on the pod and going deep with
you. I like it.
Just a thrill.
So let's definitely keep this vibe going, and even even if we're gonna go with the vibe that Sunday's gonna work out, and even without it, we'll do a wrap up, or either hopefully a preview of Game 7, or a wrap up of a fun season that we didn't expect. So it's been great catching up with you both.